God, I've done everything I know to do. I've done everything you've asked me to do. I've never drank, I've never smoked, never had sex outside of marriage. I never did all these things that I wanted to do. I've denied myself so much. I've sacrificed every day of my life for you. So why is life still terrible? You told me that I could be filled with joy, and yet I'm just angry all the time. You told me that if I do all the right things in all the right ways, then life would go well for me. And yet you've never given me the things that I've wanted. I didn't get that promotion. I didn't get the girl of my dreams. I didn't get the family that I wanted. I didn't get the job that I wanted. I'm not making as much money as I thought I would. God, where are you? Why is life such a struggle all the time? I've done everything. I was raised in the church, God. I've raised my family in the church, God. Why is life still terrible? Why haven't you given me what I wanted? We had a deal, God, didn't we? Has your prayer ever sounded like that? Have you ever had those feelings towards God? Wondering, am I not doing enough for you already? Wondering, what more could you possibly ask of me? Wondering why somebody else seems to get all the praise when you seem overlooked or forgotten? Especially when that person, you know you're better than them. We're getting there. If your toes feel stepped on already, congratulations, you're part of the club. I have a question for you as we begin. I have 5 images up on the screen. A church building, a Walmart, the Riverwalk Mall in New Orleans, Louisiana, the city of Rome, and Kalispell, Montana, outside of Glacier National Park. Question, what do all those things have in common? Answer, places I've been lost. When I was a kid, it was a very Jesus situation. We were at church one night, and Dad thought Mom had me, Mom thought Dad had me. They drove separately, and they both left without me. Yep. Thankfully, I wasn't the last one in the building, but there were some other adults that were like, hey, you come hang out with us until your parents get back. But I still remember that. And then as a kid in Walmart one time, I think my mom had to go off to do some shopping and left me with my sister. That was a mistake. And I wandered off to look at like toys or something. And next thing I know, I turn around and nobody's there. My sister's off freaking out. I lost my brother. My mom comes. I was only like the next aisle over. It wasn't a big deal. The Riverwalk Mall in New Orleans, Louisiana, my dad grew up in New Orleans, so we would go down and visit some of his family about once a year or so. And the Riverwalk Mall was this just huge mall area with tons of shops, and I remember distinctly this one toy store in the mall. And we were with a big group, like it was all of us siblings and cousins, aunts, uncles, the whole crew. And we were in this shop, and then we were leaving the shop. But I got distracted by the little swirly things outside in a little kiosk outside the shop. And I was like, this is so cool. And I just stood there while the rest of the group wandered off. Now, thankfully, by that point, I was a little bit older and had the wherewithal to inform the shopkeeper, hey, I think my parents left me. I don't know what to do. And they informed a security guard, and they came and got me, and we started looking. And about the time we went kind of up an escalator with the security card and kind of came back down. Then they realized, oh no, we don't have the youngest. Yeah, that's the joy of being the youngest in the family. You get overlooked a lot. You get forgotten about. But then come the times that were kind of my fault. When Caitlin and I were traveling through Europe at the end of our semester abroad, it was December, mind you, so it was cold, it was rainy. We had just flown from Athens into Rome, and it was just a nasty, wet, gray day. And so we're like, we'll see the sights tomorrow, it'll be better weather. So we went to our hotel, checked in, went down to the front desk, and I was like, where's a good restaurant? And between the language barriers, we kind of sort of mapped it out, and I was like, I got it. I know exactly where he said to go. Ladies and gentlemen, I did not know exactly where to go. And about 30 minutes later, we're sopping wet, freezing cold. Caitlin is talking to me sternly, I'll say. And we just decided to go back to the hotel, change some dry clothes, hang our sopping wet clothes over the radiator, and just eat at the hotel restaurant. And it was lovely. We should have done that in the first place. But I thought I knew where I was going, and I did not. It was nighttime in the rain in Rome. I had no idea. And then, a few years back, Caitlin's cousin got married outside of Glacier National Park in Kalispell, Montana. And I would say it was beautiful, but it was when there were wildfires, so we actually couldn't see the sights very well. Aiden said it smelled like hot dogs, and it did. It smelled like a campfire with hot dogs. It was crazy. Couldn't see the mountains for anything. The day of the wedding came, and it cleared up, and it was beautiful. I loved it. Well, it was just a short kind of turnaround trip, and we were in the rental car. Caitlin's parents were driving behind us. We thought we knew where we were going. I pulled out Google Maps on my phone, typed in airport, go, and off we went. And so I'm relying on my GPS on my phone. Caitlin's phone is in her bag in the very back of the car. And all the while, Caitlin's parents are trying to get a hold of us because we're going the wrong way. Ends up, they had to blow past us, almost run us off the road to get our attention. We were all safe. It's okay. But we're like, what is happening? And they're like, you're going the wrong way. I'm like, the GPS says airport. And I look up. It's not taking us to Glacier International Airport. It's taking us to the regional airport out by the Walmart on the complete opposite direction. By the time we actually got to the real airport, we had missed our flight. Yeah, I still feel bad about that one. Question for today. What does it feel like to be lost? Now, wait, hold on. Some of you are automatically jumping to it feels helpless, it feels frustrating. Nope, that's not what I said. What does it feel like to be lost? It feels like you're on the right track. It doesn't feel like being lost. You think you're going the right direction. You think everything's fine. You think you're not lost. Men, even when your wife is saying, hey, ask for direction. They're like, I'm not lost. I know exactly where I'm going. That way. What does it feel like to be lost? Sometimes it feels like you're on the right track. Sometimes it feels like you're going the right direction. It doesn't feel like you're lost. Today we're going to look at 3 stories. If you have your Bibles, Bible check. Hey, do you have a physical print Bible? Hold it up high. Yeah, Bible check. We used to do that back in the day, back in my church. Bible check, everybody. I want us to get in the habit of bringing our physical print Bibles. Even if you're like, well, I use it on my phone or my iPad. Like, that's great, that's cool. But my son Ian actually made a good point. He said, when I'm looking at a physical Bible, I can read what comes before and after if I get bored. I'm like, that's great. Do that, please. If you have to zone out during a sermon, I would much rather it be zoned out because you're reading what comes before or after, and you get distracted in the word rather than distracted by your phone. Okay, off that soapbox. Let's get our Bibles. Luke chapter 15 is where we're going to be. Luke chapter 15. Today is all about lost things getting found. Lost and found, the lost things in life. Luke chapter 15. And it begins like this in verses 1 and 2. All the tax collectors and sinners were approaching to listen to him, and the Pharisees and scribes were complaining, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." You got to remember, in the ancient world, you are who you eat with. There's an equality there when you share a meal with someone. It's like a high school cafeteria. You are who you eat with. The jocks are at that table, cheerleaders at that table, band nerds at that table, and never shall they mix. You are who you eat with. That was definitely the case back in that day. So in Jesus' day, when they said, he welcomes sinners and even eats with them, that was a way of saying he's like on their level. Can you believe this guy? And they're getting all upset. We should be the ones eating with him. Now, this is a story of two groups. This is a story of two groups. When you hear the word sinners and tax collectors, this is kind of the image that comes to mind. Okay, no offense here, but like white trash, nobodies, the forgotten about, the people that you wouldn't necessarily want coming to a banquet or a formal event. The people that you wouldn't necessarily have in charge of things because you're a little wary of them. Oh, you know, those people from the wrong side of the tracks, that live in the wrong place, that hang out with the wrong people, that do all that wrong stuff on the weekends. And when you hear tax collectors, we think IRS, button-up, suit and tie, all prim and proper accountant. Don't think that. Think mob boss collection agency. Because that's how they would have been viewed. They would have been viewed as traitors. They would have been viewed as thugs. They were working for the Romans, which they had the force of Rome behind them to take money from their own people, to tax them, and then skim a little extra off the top. Hey, it's a nice farm there you got. Be a shame if something happened to it. That's what we're talking about here. Despised, no good scumbags. These are the type of people that no good Jewish boy or girl would be caught hanging around. And that's who Jesus is being accused of inviting to lunch. And who are these accusations being hurled by? It's the Pharisees and the scribes. Now, Pharisees think preachers. Okay? Ouch. The Pharisees weren't all bad. They weren't just the bad guy in the story. But they were your stereotypical religious fanatic. They were all about them some law and prophets. They were all about them some Bible. They were all about them some following the rules every step of the way. And then the scribes, think biblical scholarship. Think guys that sat around with ancient scrolls and maps and making copies all day and arguing about translations and arguing about words and phrases and theology all day, and that's their job. Which group would you rather hang out with? Probably that group on the left. You're going to have way more fun. But that's not the point. Jesus tells a series of stories to try and bring these two groups of people together. He's trying to get both of these groups that are diametrically opposed to each other to come to some sort of common ground, some sort of common understanding, some form of unity, if that's even possible. And so he tells two stories to start. Think of these as appetizer stories. Look here in verse 3. So he told them this parable. What man among you who has 100 sheep, which is not a small amount, by the way, and loses one of them, does not leave the 99 in the open field and go after the lost one until he finds it? And when he's found it, he joyfully puts it on his shoulders, and then coming home, he calls his friends and neighbors together, saying to them, "Rejoice with me, because I've found my lost sheep." I tell you, in the same way, there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous people who don't need repentance. Now, I got to explain this just a bit. This is a how much more so kind of story. So it's not super helpful to pinpoint, well, who plays what role in the story. It's just, here's this experience that we can all kind of agree on. A shepherd has 100 sheep. He counts them up, realizes one's gone, secures them in the open field, makes sure they're all together, leaves and goes and finds the one that wandered off, because sheep are dumb. Sheep are herd animals. If they are on their own for too long, they will die. If they fall into the water, their wool will absorb all the water and they will drown. If they aren't around a patch of grass that they can munch on, they will munch on just about anything, whether it's poisonous or not, and they will die. Sheep are dumb. They rely on the shepherd and the herd. So the shepherd, being a good shepherd, doesn't want the sheep to die, so he goes out searching for the one lost sheep, retracing his steps, searching high and low, finally finds it, hoists it on his shoulders because he doesn't want it wandering off again, and carries it back to the rest of the group and throws a party with all his friends and neighbors. Now that seems like an extreme response to just finding a lost sheep. To throw a party. Friends, neighbors, hey, rejoice with me, come party, we're going to hang out. And guess what's being served? Lamb. I found my lost sheep. Come party with me. How much more so, Jesus says? How much more joy will there be in heaven over one sinner who repents and comes back into the fold than 99 righteous persons? Now, they don't have punctuation, and they don't really have sarcasm in the ancient Greek language. I like to imagine there's air quotes around the righteous persons. Around 99, quote unquote, righteous person. You know what I mean? Because Isaiah the prophet reminds us there's no one righteous, not even one. Do you know a single person in this world that has never sinned, never committed any sort of violation against God's commands, who doesn't need to repent? I don't. I don't know one, much less 99. And I think that's the point that we're getting at here. There is joy when a sinner repents. One that has gone astray and been lost out in the wilderness somewhere. Then he tells this second story. Look here in verse 8. Or what woman, pause, he makes a woman the main character, which is pretty cool. That doesn't happen a lot in the ancient world, even in fictional stories like this. But I digress. What woman who has 10 silver coins, if she loses one, doesn't light a lamp and sweep the house and search carefully until she finds it? And when she finds it, she calls her friends and neighbors together, saying, "Rejoice with me, because I found the silver coin I lost." I tell you, in the same way, there is joy in the presence of God's angels over one sinner who repents. She has 10 coins. We've gone from 100 down to 10. Okay, 100, it might be easy to misplace one. 10, oh, now we're kind of getting serious. If this is your life savings and you've just lost 10% of it, if you have rent coming due and you've misplaced your paycheck, you're going to scour that house. And that's exactly what she does. She lights the lamp. The interior of these houses were pretty dimly lit most of the time, even in broad daylight. So she lights the lamp. She sweeps under everything. She lifts up the couch. She goes through her kids' clothes, right? Checks all the pockets before they go into the wash. She scours everywhere. until she finds it. And then she parties. Rejoice with me. So we've gone from 100 down to 10. We've gone from one lost sheep that wandered off away, and we've got one item that's lost in the house. Are you tracking? One item is lost away, one item is lost here at home. He's setting the stage, and you've got this series that repeats. Something is lost, something is searched for, that something is found, celebration. And if it just ended right there, these are great stories. In fact, in the Gospel of Matthew, he has that parable of the lost sheep, and it's kind of a standalone thing. There's some slight differences, but that's the beauty of these stories, is that they can fit different contexts. You can read them in different ways, depending on where you are in life. But the point of these two stories, he says, is this: how much more so? If a woman gets excited because she found her lost coin, how much more so would God and the angels rejoice when one sinner gets found? How much more so? And then it comes to what I believe is one of the greatest stories ever told. I firmly believe that. I say it with my whole chest. This is one of the greatest stories ever told in human history. Because as long as I've been studying this, as long as I've been hearing this story told and studying it for myself and teaching it and preaching it, I always find something new. I hope that's the case with you this morning too. The parable of the lost son, or sons. Verse 11, he also said, a man had two sons. Now I got to stop right there again. When he says a man has two sons, and he's speaking to a Jewish audience, especially one filled with teachers and theologians and those who study and copy scripture for a living. When he says a man had two sons, it's lighting up all the hyperlinks. There's so many connections just in that one little phrase. A man had two sons. Think Adam with Cain and Abel. Think Abraham with Isaac and Ishmael. Think Isaac with Jacob and Esau. A man had two sons. What do we know about sons in scriptures? Well, often the older one is kind of a doofus and the younger one gets the blessing. Think of Joseph. Think of David. Think of Solomon. So in just that little phrase, Jesus is priming us to hear things a certain way. He's priming his audience to think about all these stories that they've grown up with. A man had two sons. Ooh. Let's learn about these sons. The younger of them said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the inheritance, of the estate that is coming to me." So he distributed the assets to them, and the whole audience would gasp. What did he do? The audacity of that younger brother to ask for his inheritance while his dad was still alive. To say, "Dad, you haven't died quickly enough. Just give me what's coming to me and let me be on my way." So we would expect, so the dad scolded the younger and cut him off completely and kicked him out of the family. No. The dad did what the younger son asked. So he did it. He divided his assets. He had yard sales. He went to the auction block. He had an estate sale to liquidate some of these assets to give his son the cash equivalent, or thereabouts, of what was coming to him in his inheritance. Now, the older brother would have gotten the double portion. So if you're good at math, that means the older brother would have gotten 2/3, the younger brother could get 1/3. So it's still less than the older brother, but it's still kind of also coming out of the older brother's inheritance too, so they have to divide it between themselves, and stuff gets messy. I've heard if you've ever had to deal with inheritance issues after the passing of a parent, stuff can get messy real quick. Imagine trying to do it while they're still alive. Whew, we're only like 2 verses into this one. Anyway, not many days later, the younger son gathered together all that he had and traveled to a distant country where he squandered his estate in foolish living. He went to the big city. He was a high roller, trying to impress all the friends, maybe trying to impress the ladies, who knows? Living the life, living the dream, living it up. Doing whatever he wanted, wherever he wanted, whenever he wanted. It's almost like that song from Simba and the Lion King, I just can't wait to be king. Nobody can tell me what to do. No one's saying do this, be there, stop that. He is living it up. He is king of his own kingdom, so to speak. Verse 14, after he had spent everything, a severe famine struck the country and he had nothing. He had already spent everything. He had nothing, and now it's almost like he has less than nothing. So then he went to work for one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into the fields to feed the pigs. So often we find out in life that rock bottom has a basement. We talked about that some in our 12-step program. Sometimes you think you've hit rock bottom. Here he is in a foreign land, no friends, no money, no assets, no place to live, hires himself out just to make a living for himself. And where does he get sent? Go feed the pigs. Rock bottom for him had a basement. And he longed to eat his fill from the pods that the pigs were eating. But no one would give him anything. He's not at home anymore. He's not in his home country anymore, where people know him, where people take care of him, where the law of the land is to love God and to love your neighbor as yourself, to care for the poor, to leave a little extra when you harvest your field so that other people who are in need can come and take what they need as well. He was not at home anymore. Nobody cared about him. No one was going to give him a single thing. And so, verse 17, when he came to his senses, have you ever had that moment, coming to your senses? He said, how many of my father's hired workers have more than enough food, and here I am dying of hunger? I'll get up and go to my father and say to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and in your sight. I'm no longer even worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired workers. So he got up and went to his father. I want to pause right there. I started this sermon with this question: what does it feel like to be lost? Sometimes it feels normal. It feels like you're going the right direction. It feels like you're on the right track. It doesn't feel like anything's wrong. What does it feel like to know that you're lost? That's an entirely different thing. When I was a kid at that Riverwalk Mall and just looking at the little twirly things in the display, I didn't know I was lost, but I was. And I felt just fine. And then I came to my senses and snapped out of it and realized I'm alone. Sometimes you can be lost and not realize it. It took this guy coming to his senses. And how did he come to his senses? It's because God allowed him to go through a time of suffering. It's because God allowed him to experience those hardships, the hardship of not having money, not having friends or family around, and then a famine strikes. Sometimes God uses our bad circumstances. Don't hear me say God causes bad things to happen, but God can use the hard circumstances of our life to wake us up, to make us come to our senses, to shake us out of our stupor and make us realize we are lost. And we need to turn back and get back home. What does it feel like to know that you're lost? Do you think he ever envisioned ending up in that pigsty when he set out? I don't think so. And I don't think there's anything wrong with leaving home and going off and adventuring and making a life for yourself. I don't think that's wrong. But it's the way he went about doing it. He was lost because all he wanted was to be away from his father. He only wanted what his father could give him. Give me my share of the inheritance. And he wanders off. And he wants nothing else to do with his father. He wants to have a life as different from his father as possible. How many does that ring a bell for? How many does that resonate with? And it's only when he's in that pigsty, stomach grumbling, thinking, maybe I can just help myself to some of the slops that they're eating, did he realize, wait a second, what am I doing here? The hired hands of my father's house have more than enough to eat. I'll just go back and not even want to be his son anymore, but I'll just ask him to hire me on like one of them. Not to treat me differently, not to treat me special, just let me come back home. Sometimes we need to come to our senses. We need to have that wake-up call happen. So, sometimes we need to do a check-in with ourselves to realize, am I lost? So here's a little acronym for you, okay? If you're taking notes, you can write this down. Am I lost? Am I lonely? In each one of these stories he tells, something is lost on its own. It's lost because it's away from home. It's not where it should be. It's off by itself, whether it's the sheep, the coin, or the son. They find themselves alone. Am I lonely? Do I have a support system around me, or have I turned my back and walked away from it all? Have I forgotten about my friends that care about me? Have I not reached out to my family in too long? Have I separated myself and isolated myself in a way that is unhealthy? Am I lonely? Am I outside of the bounds? Am I out of bounds? Am I outside of where I should be? Have I gone astray? Have I wandered off? Have I found myself in a place I never thought I would end up? Take a look around. Is this what you imagined for your life? If not, then it might be time to do a 180 and turn back and go back home. That's what repent means, is to do a 180 and go the opposite direction from where you had been. Am I outside? Then come back home and come in. Get back in with the people. This next one, am I just being stubborn? How many times along the way could the younger son have turned back? No, he was just stubborn. I've made my bed, now I got to sleep in it, right? I'm too proud to ask for help. I'm too proud to turn around and make a change. What will people think of me? I'm too far gone. There's no point. So I'm going to just stubbornly stick with what I've been doing my entire life so far. So many of us are just stubborn. And we've got to set our pride aside and come back home. And then T, am I just taking? Am I just taking and taking and taking? That's what the younger son did at first. Give me my share of the inheritance. And he took all of his stuff and left. He was only in it for himself. What can I get out of it? Take, take, take. And I'm not even saying the opposite of that is to give. Absolutely. But another way of thinking of this is, are you taking or are you receiving? Are you taking as if you're entitled to something, or are you receiving as a gift of grace? That's why I think, side note, when we go for communion, I think it's better to talk about the language of receiving communion rather than taking. Because we aren't taking anything for ourselves, we are receiving the blessing from God. Are you taking or are you receiving? And are you living a life of generosity? Lonely, outside, stubborn. Are you a taker? All of these are indicators that you're lost. These are warning signs. This is your GPS saying rerouting when you're lost. So, the story continues. Verse 20, so he got up and went to his father. But while the son was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion, and he ran. Grown men don't run. Not in that society. When was the last time you saw your dad or your grandfather run? Yesterday, maybe? Oh, something's wrong. But he ran to him. In that society, grown men, respectable men, don't run. He ran to him. He threw his arms around him and kissed him. And the son started this little apology message that he had started. He said, Father, I've sinned against heaven and in your sight. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father told his servants, quick, bring out the robe, the best robe, and put it on him. Put a ring on his fingers and sandals on his feet. Then bring the fattened calf and slaughter it. Let's celebrate with a feast. We're having a cookout, a bonfire, a barbecue. Invite everyone, because this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. So they began right then and there to celebrate. And if that's where the story ended, we would stand and sing about coming home, and it would be wonderful. That is an amazing story of grace, how this son could squander everything and still come back home and be embraced as the loving son of the Father. But the story started out, the man had two sons. A man had two sons. Where's the other one? He wasn't just an excellent farmer, he was outstanding in his field. It's another dad joke for you. You can shake your head all you want. It's not going to stop. Verse 25. Now the older son, we finally get back to him. Meanwhile, the older son was out in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. What's going on? Is this for me? So he summoned one of the servants and questioned what these things meant. Your brother is here, he told them, and your father has slaughtered the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound. I want to pause just a moment real quick too. Sometimes I have felt like this servant, caught in the middle, especially when I was doing youth ministry and having to share with some of the adults that have been in the church for decades about what's happening in our youth group and how people are starting to come to faith and starting to change their lives. And they're like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like, why are y'all being so noisy down there? It's because we're celebrating. We're having an awesome time. Okay, as they grumble off. I've felt like this servant having to share the news to somebody who doesn't really care. Verse 28. So then the older brother got super excited and went and joined the party. No, he became angry and he didn't want to go in. There's that stubbornness. So his father came out and pleaded with him. Now, which of the two sons did the father go searching for? It was the older one. We have this series of events that take place in each of these stories where something is lost, something is searched for, something is found. The one in this story that is actually searched for is the older brother. The father went out to him to find his older son. And he pleaded with him, begged him, come to the party. Come hang out with the rest of the family, with the neighbors, with your brother. But he replied to his father, look, that's a great way to start out a conversation with your dad. Look here, old man. I've been slaving many years for you. I have never disobeyed your orders yet. You never gave me a goat so that I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, who has devoured your assets with prostitutes, he comes home, you've slaughtered the fattened calf for him. If we're not careful, many of us, our story can start out as the younger brother and we can end up as the older. If we're not careful, we can have this amazing story of coming to God and receiving his grace and mercy and forgiveness, being invited into the family and restored as his child. But then down the line, we can become that grumpy, angry, bitter old person who just shakes his head in judgment at anybody else who's found celebrating. Some of you may be in church your whole life, and you have sacrificed. You felt like you've slaved away for God, that you've done your time, you've done everything you should. And then somebody makes a deathbed confession, and that irks you. That rubs you the wrong way. You think, okay, they might get into heaven, but it better be a lesser heaven than I'm getting. They better get the room next to the ice machine, not the corner room with the view. I want the penthouse. They better be in the basement. They can be there, but no. God doesn't play those games with his children. See, what it turns out is that the older brother is just as lost as the younger. There's a way, and he starts this with the first two stories. There's a way to be lost in the far country, and there's a way to be lost right at home. Which one are you? We're all sinners in need of repentance. Which one are you? Have you wandered off? Have you gone astray? Have you squandered the life God has given you? Come back home. But if you are home, if you've been sitting in this chair, in that same chair, I see where you sit, year after year, decade after decade, slaving away for him and feel disgruntled when someone gets celebrated, maybe you're lost right at home. Maybe you need to come to the party. I'm going to have to skim over this, but just comparing what the younger brother said versus what the older brother said is just mind-blowing to me. Because the older brother is throwing the biggest pity party for himself. He doesn't even view himself as a son of the father, but a slave of the father. He didn't want to celebrate with the family and the village. He wanted to celebrate with his friends. Everything is so turned inward that he can't even get outside himself to be happy for someone else. And the father begs and pleads with him, just come into the party. And he says this. This is verse 31. This is verse 32. No, 31. I got ahead of myself on the screens. This is verse 31. I want us to read this together aloud, because I think this is critical to understanding the will of the Father. Read this with me. You are always with me, and everything I have is yours. Neither one of these sons wanted to be with the father, but the father desperately wanted to be with his children. You are always with me. Everything I have, take a look around. This is all yours. It's all yours. You could have done whatever you wanted to with it. I gave it to you already. So receive it. Receive my presence. Receive my blessings and my gifts. And just be with me. Be with your brother. This painting is the famous Return of the Prodigal by Rembrandt. The more you look at it, the more you'll see. But this is what the Father ends with. But we had to celebrate and rejoice because this brother of yours, the older brother could only say, this son of yours. The father reminds him, he's your brother. Take a look around. These are your brothers and sisters. This brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. We had to celebrate. Over the week, Caitlin and I took our boys down to Harding University, the college where we graduated from, and it was a week-long church camp there on the campus. And one of the nights, as entertainment, and I posted a video of this, we just gathered in called the rotunda of the Bible building, which is on 3 levels with an open staircase and everything, and about 1,000 people just singing. Yes, it is Church of Christ, it is a cappella, but my goodness, I missed it. The video I posted was of Mary's Magnificat that we sing, but there's another time that I didn't video because it was just crazy. There's a song called Said I Wasn't, and we sang that song over and over again because the kids were going nuts with it, singing at their top of their lungs, clapping, dancing, singing, and celebrating. And if anybody had a problem with that, I would refer them to this. We had to celebrate because there's so much to be joyful of. There's so much to celebrate. Jesus himself said the Son of Man has come to seek and save the lost. And there can be lost far away. There can be people who are lost right here. The tax collectors and sinners, yes, they need to come home. But so do the Pharisees and the scribes. Yes, the sinners, the drug addicts, the alcoholics, the people who are far away, the atheists, they need to come home. They need to come back to their Father. But so do some of the people who have been sitting in this very room for decades. The lost can get found and embraced by the Father. Caitlin, I'm going to ask you to come back up. So the question is, are you coming to the party or not? It ends with a cliffhanger. We're not told what the older brother does. It ends with a cliffhanger. I want to know, does he come to the party or not? And that question is left up to the listener. This is a choose-your-own-adventure story. You remember those? You get to decide how this story ends. You get to decide whether you're coming to the party or not. You get to decide whether you're going to embrace the Father and your brothers and sisters in celebration or not. I want the lost to get found today. Come to the party. We're going to